2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the place where you get out overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Moist Mike. Welcome on back, buddy. And also Stuart Kovacs rocking and roll with me all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Tony Pauline will join us at the Senior Bowl coming up in about an hour 20 from now. And we got a whole lot cooking on a very busy Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. I got to start the show off with the Washington Commanders. And the Washington Commanders made a hire today that wasn't unexpected, but it was unexpected a week ago. Like, you get to what has happened the last 48 hours. Once Ben Johnson was out and he elected to go back to the Lions, it was one of those decisions of who was going to be their next head coach, and you saw that Dan Quinn was getting his second interview. Well, Dan Quinn getting his second interview solidified to me that he was going to be the next head coach of the Washington Commanders. And when you take a glance at the whole situation and what's going on with the Commanders, the way I look at it was about a month ago, there was so much excitement with the Commanders. You got rid of an overall pick in the draft, and you're going to get a quarterback. You're looking for a new general manager. And not only when you get a new general manager, the hire was met with a positive reaction. And it was a hire where you were able to get one of the more impressive candidates on the market in Adam Peters. But when you look at the head coaching hire, with all the speculation, with all the palpable buzz, and all the excitement, it was feeling like there was going to be a really good announcer. Like Ben Johnson said no. Ben Johnson pulled himself out. Mike Vrabel never seemed like there was any real interest with the Commanders. You want to tell me Belichick and Carroll are older and they're not fit for 2024? All right. That's your prerogative. You could say that. But I do walk away from this Commanders hire of Dan Quinn, where it's not an F, it's not an A+. It kind of feels like an incomplete. It's like, all right, you made a hire. It's a solid hire. We'll see how it pans out. But it doesn't elicit a strong, positive, emotional response. And this is the first move in this short tenure for Josh Harris, where Josh Harris obviously was met with great excitement. And then Adam Peters, all right, you got the guy. Great excitement. And you knew that there was going to be a lot of building, but is Dan Quinn really the right guy to build with? Is Dan Quinn really the dude that you think is going to turn around the Washington Commanders? And I'm not someone that just says just because you're a defensive-minded head coach, you can't have success in this league. Heck, look at what DeMeco Ryans just did in year one. But I also got to see who he's bringing in as his offensive coordinator, because it does feel inevitable with the second overall pick in the draft, whether it's Williams, it's May, it's Daniels, they're going to take a quarterback at number 2. And if you don't put that quarterback in the right environment and get him the right coaching and get him the right protection, this is going to be something that could get ugly real quick. So far, all the dominoes that have fallen with the Commanders, positive. And this is the first one where it's not negative, but it does not give you this response of, wow, gee golly, they really hit this one out of the park. And that's the disappointment. It's almost like I'll equate it to, you get told you're getting a great gift for Christmas. And someone asks you, what do you want? You tell them what you want. They make you believe that you are getting the creme de la creme gift. And then Christmas comes around, you run downstairs in your pajamas, you eat the cookies, you drink the milk, all that stuff. And Santa gives you like a t-shirt. And it's like, okay, I could use this t-shirt. All right, it's a nice t-shirt. It's a solid t-shirt. It's a fine gift, but it's not the gift that I wanted. It's not the sexy gift. It's not the great gift. It's not the awesome gift. And that's the part where it's like, not a bad hire, but it's not one that is an A, and it's probably not one that's like a B. It's an average hire. It's like a C+. And in college, I was told, for me, C's get degrees. So maybe the Commanders start to get back to functioning the right way. Heck, you can't function any worse than you did under Daniel Snyder. But we've seen before Josh Harris, when he's at least operated other teams, hire big-time coaches. Dan Quinn just doesn't give you a big-time vibe. Now, I know that we're now back up and streaming youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. We had some problems right out of the gate. But someone did ask a question. Bucky Cheese asked a question. What a name. Who's the best coach now in the NFC East? And I think it is a great question. So the Commanders now have Dan Quinn. The Eagles, somewhat, and for some reason, brought back Nick Sirianni. The Cowboys, they did retain the services of Mike McCarthy for one more year, not giving him an extension. And guess what? Jerry Jones already running his mouth about how much respect he has and how him and Bill Belichick could work well together. And then the Giants have a guy that was the coach of the year 2 years ago in Brian Daboll, had a feud with his defensive coordinator. Now they were underachieving this year. They missed the postseason, and I don't really see a future for the New York Giants to turn this thing around anytime soon. And it is a make or break year for Brian Daboll. You know, it is wild. Like, you look at the hot seat entering next season, the premature hot seat. McCarthy's on the hot seat, Sirianni's on the hot seat, and Daboll's on the hot seat. Like, this time next year, the longest tenured coach in the NFC East could be Dan Quinn. And he would only have one little season with the Washington Commanders. Because I could see Sirianni getting fired after this year, I could see McCarthy getting fired after this year, and I could see Daboll getting fired after this year. This is like, what disease do you want to pick? And that's what it really is with these coaches. Because you don't look at any of them and have any confidence in any of the four to win a Super Bowl. So I guess I would say the best coach in the NFC East right now, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be surprised by this, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to laugh at me for this, but it is McCarthy. Like, at least you know the Cowboys are going to win 11, 12 games. They'll choke in the postseason. But you see Sirianni with the Eagles, it probably should have been him. And you look at the resume, 3 years, 3 postseason appearances. Zach, he's been to a Super Bowl. But he lost all control of that locker room this year. And I know the players will speak positively about him. But when you lose control of that locker room, I don't think you get it back. And I can't say it's Dan Quinn. And I can't say it's Daboll. So I would go with McCarthy, who has won a Super Bowl, who is a good coach. He's not an elite coach. He's not a great coach. He's not an excellent coach, but he's just good. And he has won with Aaron Rodgers. And I know he hasn't won a Super Bowl without Aaron Rodgers, but the Cowboys have consistently been, under his watch, a playoff team in back-to-back-to-back seasons. And they exceeded regular season expectations this year because they won the NFC East. And entering last year, I thought the Eagles would have won the NFC East. So, yeah, that's how you know the state of the NFC East from a coaching perspective. When I'm sitting here 15 minutes past an hour on the first day of February in the year of 2024, and I'm saying McCarthy is now the best head coach in the NFC East. It kind of falls in line how I answer that question with how I view the hiring of Dan Quinn. Like, saying Mike McCarthy is the best coach in the NFC East now is an underwhelming kind of coach. And that's an underwhelming statement. Saying Dan Quinn is the hire for the Commanders is also underwhelming. How do you describe the hire of Dan Quinn? Once again, my word is underwhelming. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Should LeBron James ask for a trade from now until the end of the NBA trade deadline this year as he gets set, in all likelihood, for free agency? We'll discuss that on the other side.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Where are all you cockroach Cowboy fans that all year said, Zach, you're not giving this team any credit. Zach, this team is really damn good. Zach, this team's going to make their first NFC title game since 1995. Where are you? You're silent. You're exterminated. The cockroaches are exterminated. And it happens every year.
Here's Zach Gelb.
You can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. So I keep on reading about the future of LeBron James. And some of it is tied, whether what you want to believe or not, to Bronny James, who's in his freshman year at USC. I think it's probably best that Bronny stays another year at USC. But just because Zach Gelb thinks that's what's best for Bronny James, it doesn't mean that is what is actually going to happen. And I do believe when we get into this summer's NBA draft, if Bronny James does declare, there's going to be that belief from what LeBron has said that he wants to play a year or two, or he wants to play sometime with his son, that there will be teams that may not like Bronny James as a player and may not think Bronny James is ready, but they end up picking him because with LeBron about to hit a player option, he could opt out and get his free agency and then do a favorable deal or go to a place that he wouldn't consider if, in fact, that team, let's say, drafts Bronny James. So there's that component of it. But I think what would make it a little bit more compelling is if Bronny doesn't come out of college this year and if he stays another year at USC. Because I think we're at the point with LeBron and the Lakers where you know their days of winning are behind them. And the goal is to win a championship. It is championship or bust every year for LeBron James because of who he is as a basketball player. And he won the 2020 bubble championship. That's a legitimate championship to me. I'm not going to be one of those clowns that go, oh, it's illegitimate, don't count it, Mickey Mouse championship. And I also wouldn't do that to Stu. I like Stu too much, who is a diehard fan of the Los Angeles Lakers. But now I think last year shows that even when everything goes right, there's still a ceiling with the way that the team's constructed. Like, I still can't get over that I had a trip planned to visit my brother-in-law, my sister, and my niece in Denver, Colorado for Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals. I had tickets for Game 5. All the lousy Lakers had to do was win one game. And they couldn't even do that. And that was a surprising surge. That was exceeding realistic expectations of where the Lakers were entering last postseason. So if everything went right last postseason and they still could only get to the Western Conference Finals and they got swept out of the Western Conference Finals, and it's not as if this year we have many strong teams in either conference, what makes me believe, even with LeBron getting another year older and LeBron still playing at a high level, that this is going to work? And what will the Lakers be able to do from now until the trade deadline to change that opinion? Like, they could get better with getting DeJounte Murray. Like, they could. But is it going to make them a championship contender? No. Like, let's say, and I don't think the Warriors will trade Klay Thompson. They should. But let's say, all right, Michael Thompson's his father. He does the games in Los Angeles. Klay wants to go there. He realizes the team's not going to give him a new contract. And let's say they actually make the right decision. Like, if Klay goes to the Lakers, are we now saying championship for the Lakers? No. So I actually do believe the best course of action for the Lakers is to trade LeBron James. But I don't think LeBron James is going to go along with it, because I think LeBron does take pride in the fact that even though he's moved around and even though he has left teams, he's never requested a trade. He's never forced his way out while still under contract, regardless of a player option to get to free agency sooner. So I don't think LeBron is going to operate that way. And I also do believe LeBron enjoys now living in Los Angeles, and it's easy access for him to get to USC's campus to go see his son play basketball games right now. So from a professional standpoint and a personal standpoint, I don't believe LeBron is going to go to Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss and say, okay, I'm ready to get you guys something back for me, and I'm going to leave. And also, the team that trades for him, what's the guarantee that LeBron is going to stay there with him having a player option? And I know also with the Lakers, when it comes to trying to improve their team, because LeBron's putting the pressure on them. He's giving the side eye to the new Laker coach, Darvin Ham. He's tweeting out the hourglass like time's are ticking away. He is leading on that he's upset, and he's putting on the pressure for the Lakers to do something. But can the Lakers even get elite talent right now to join him? Because just the way that the first-round picks work, from what I was reading, they could trade one first-round pick now, but in the summer, the offseason, they could trade then 3. Like, if you're trying to maximize this window with LeBron and you're trying to get him another championship, you don't want to make a move right now just to try to save this ship from sinking this year, because even if you save the ship from sinking, it isn't sailing to an NBA championship this year. So I would actually do the opposite. Like, I think the Lakers should trade LeBron. I don't think, though, that's going to happen. And I hate to say punt and do nothing, but I think that's the best course of action, assuming LeBron doesn't want to tango here with a trade situation and he doesn't want to get traded. It's probably in the best interest of the Lakers to just wait until this offseason to figure this out. Like, Stu, since you're a Lakers fan, where are you at with LeBron James in terms of what do you expect him to do with this future decision?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you. I think trading him right now would probably be the right move, only because, look, I mean, they're not winning another title. I'd be stunned. If they got another star to play with LeBron and Davis somehow, whether it's next offseason or whatnot, that would shock me. I don't think that's possible. I don't think LeBron's going to ask for a trade. I think he likes being in L.A. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of it. And I think he is waiting till when Bronny comes out and who he gets drafted by. I think he's in L.A. till then. So, like, I think it's over. I just can't see a way that they win another title.
So I know LeBron is still playing at a very high level. He's, 39 right now? So maybe he wants to play until he's 40. Isn't it like, I'm never going to tell a guy when to retire. He gets to make that decision. But isn't like it's already enough? And I know that could sound hypocritical for me because I want to see Tom Brady play as long as possible. But when is enough enough? And these guys are wired different ways. They are wired a certain way, and that's what makes them some of the best athletes and the most winning athletes that we've ever seen. So they're addicted to the sport. They're addicted to the grind. And I really do believe that with Tom Brady and LeBron James. But even Brady walked away eventually. I feel like we never talk about LeBron retiring. The only speculation on LeBron has been, when is he going to go somewhere else to play with Bronny? And then is that the final year? And, hey, God bless LeBron. LeBron could do whatever the heck he wants with the way that he has been on the basketball court for the last 2 decades. But, like, from the Bronny perspective, as much as you love your dad, do you want your dad in the locker room with you for your rookie season? Like, for example, let's say when I was going to college, my dad was like, I'm going to transfer in and just take some classes at Temple University. Like, Dad, when I'm having fun as a young up-and-coming athlete, I don't know if I want Dad in the locker room. I would kind of want to go on my own and find my own path. So the LeBron future part to me is just fascinating, and I do ultimately believe what Stu is getting to. It is dependent on what Bronny James ends up deciding. Because let's just say he goes back to USC another year. I think LeBron is back in the Lakers next year. But let's say he enters the draft, then I do believe as long as Bronny is cool with it, LeBron is going to whatever destination and whatever team Bronny gets selected by. All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a time out. When we come on back, we got a news brief to get to. And there's one colleague of mine at CBS Sports Radio that is not happy with me. And he talked about me a lot last night after getting so sensitive about me talking about him. We'll play you some of that audio on the other side. First up, though, with the latest CBS Sports Radio update. Drinking a coffee, got the backwards hat, coming straight from the gym.
Shorts on.
Yeah, shorts that are way too short. I feel a little uncomfortable with how short those shorts are. We don't need to see a thigh show.
Hold on.
Oh, no. What are we doing? Ay.
That's called flexibility.
We could start an OnlyFans, I think, on our youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio page.
I'm down to do that.
We'll give you, 75 cents or something like that?
Dude, you'd be surprised. You wouldn't. Well, you'd be surprised for me. You'd be surprised if I was a hot girl. What? $5 a month. How that can quickly add up for somebody.
I have no clue what you're trying to say, but I think it's the perfect time to toss it to the latest CBS Sports Radio update, and that, of course, is Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, the big NFL news of the day. Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn has reached an agreement with the Washington Commanders to be their next head coach, thus filling the final head coaching vacancy this offseason. Over to the NBA, reigning MVP Joel Embiid is out tonight again for the 76ers game in Utah and will be reevaluated on his injured left knee. Embiid did not travel with the team, instead returning to Philly. He hurt the knee in Tuesday night's loss to the Warriors, the same knee that caused him to miss the previous 2 games because of soreness. With the new NBA load management rules, Embiid can only afford to miss 5 more games before becoming ineligible for postseason awards, including All-NBA teams and the MVP. 4-game slate in the association tonight, including Lakers versus Celtics in Boston. Darvin Ham's seat getting hot. The Lakers a game under 500, but the head coach said they can't make any excuses about fatigue during a busy stretch.
Use them as excuses, or you can say, hey, the whole league goes through it. We've got to look ourselves in the mirror and man the hell up. And so it'll be more of that, but also with looking at it with clear eyes on how we can, turn this thing around.
Well, they'll have to worry about fatigue tonight. Both LeBron James and Anthony Davis have been ruled out for tonight's game. I'm Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
This portion of the show is sponsored by the new Hyundai Tucson, available with complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Now it's easy to use your phone to control your Tucson. Let's start with KJ Wright on Seattle Sports. He commends the hire of new Seattle Seahawks head coach Mike Macdonald.
The proof is in the pudding when it comes to his defense. We're talking a bad defense this past year. Doing it with a bunch of just, I'm not going to say jags, but doing it with some guys that are not just high-profile type of defensive players. He did it with those group of guys. See his personality. See that he did it at the college level, at the pro level. He comes from a phenomenal culture, a phenomenal organization. The I.Z. Newsomes, the Harbaughs. And I believe that everyone in the city of Seattle would be on full board and full go with bringing them in.
It feels like they're trying to recreate what they had with Pete Carroll, but just getting significantly younger. Because McDonald is a rising coach. Right now he's going to be a head coach. He's 36 years old. He's got great energy. He's a defensive-minded coach. Like, I feel as if they looked at Pete Carroll and they said, okay, he's done everything he can with this franchise. He's a legend. Won a Super Bowl. They were never going to win another Super Bowl with him again. Now we got to get a younger, energetic guy that maybe could be the defensive version of what Sean McVay has been for the Los Angeles Rams. Like, that's the way that I look at this hire. Where not a lot of people were talking about him being a head coach, but then when it happens, you say, okay, he had the experience at the Ravens. We know what he did at Michigan, then goes back to the Ravens. He has a great wealth of football knowledge, even at a young age. It's a gamble because there's going to be a lot of people that go, wow, how do you get rid of Pete Carroll for an unknown? But I think that the Seahawks had to end up going to this unknown kind of territory to set up the next 5 to 10 years of their franchise, and we'll see if it works. Here is Micah Parsons, the Edge with Micah Parsons. He was doing his own podcast, and he talked about if he had any regrets about his playoff loss.
I'm at complete peace, and I say that because I don't think I could have done anything more to try to win that game. And that comes to watching film with the other guys in the room, saying what I'm seeing, being vocal out there on the field. I was completely at peace because I know I don't have no regrets about how I performed or what I put into the game. And I appreciate what really matters.
Let me play you one more. Micah Parsons calls out the defensive play calling.
At the end of the day, we were just outperformed, out-schemed. They had an answer for everything. People saying, well, why ain't you go to linebacker? Guess what? The packages are in for me to go to linebacker. I can only play what it's called. I'm not putting out personnel. I've even told multiple players, coaches, that I'm very fine playing linebacker. And playoffs, if that's what y'all want me to do, I just want to win. I do see a Super Bowl in my future. I want to be a Super Bowl champion. I challenge anyone to actually go look at the game film and say, did Micah play his heart out? To go out like that at home was completely embarrassing and unacceptable. It took me a while to even be able to show my face in the public.
I think Micah Parsons means well, but there's no way you could justify that performance. When you're basically giving the line of, I played well, it was everybody else, or it was the coaching, that's taking no accountability. And if they would have lost that game, let's say 17-14, all right, different story. But no one on the Cowboys showed up. And think about the Cowboys offseason so far. You have Dak Prescott's brother sounding off in the Cowboys fans. You have CeeDee Lamb's mother sounding off on Dak Prescott. You also had Micah Parsons' brother sounding off on Dak Prescott and the organization and their fans. Now you have, in the span of the last 2 days, Jerry Jones already talking about how he thinks he could work well with Bill Belichick. And now you have Micah Parsons with his defensive coordinator on the way out, throwing him underneath the bus when just a few weeks ago he said, oh, maybe Dan Quinn will bring me to the new place that he's going to. What a mess. And I look at my watch. It's only February 1st at 3:43 p.m. Eastern. This is just the appetizer? Are you kidding me? To the offseason? When you get blown out in a game like that and you clearly underdeliver in the postseason, the best thing is to take it on the chin, talk about it immediately after that, and then shut up and go away. Seriously. Because anything you try to use to justify just reopens the wound, and it doesn't make you look good. All righty. Let's open up this can of worms. So yesterday we had Bart Winkler on. And Bart said that Shep took some shot at me, and then when I asked him what he say, Bart was like, oh, I don't know. I really don't care if Shep is taking shots at me, and I'm sure it was in the large scheme of things innocuous. Now, Stu was here yesterday. We had fun poking at Shep's basketball knowledge and Shep's way of doing a show. And it went on for like about 8 minutes or so. And I was like making a joke with the listening audience. Oh, if Shep says anything about me, I want people to inform me. So I roll over in the middle of the night, had to go to the bathroom. It's 3 a.m. Eastern time. And my mentions have been off the charts these days, even before this, with the whole Flacco video last week, the Entertainment Tonight stuff, what Urlacher said on this show as well. So I'm like, oh, it's probably just a carryover to that. And I had tweets left and right. Shep talked about me at 12:20 p.m. last night. Shep talked about me at 11:40 p.m. last night. Shep talked at 1:40 about me. Like multiple segments. Because if it all came in one time, it would be one thing. But he invaded Bart's show, and I know he's the producer, so you could say it's their show, right? But he basically invaded Bart's show and spent 3 different segments talking about me. And let me just peel back the curtain a little bit. Shep was already trying to do some crisis management, which there was no crisis. He's emailing Stu and I last night. Like, just take a shot at me and shut up, all right? I don't need you tweeting me today about a paragraph. But let's just play the audio. We condensed this because it was like 15 minutes. 5 minutes in 1 hour, 5 minutes in another hour, 5 minutes in another hour. Here's about like 2 minutes of Shep on the Bart Winkler show last night sounding off about your boy.
This dude, Zach Gelb, is a 3 to 6 primetime host, and he is spending the first segment of his show talking about me and imitating my voice. Zach, if you are going out of your way,
imitated you?
Yes, Zach Gelb.
Yes, I did. Was it good?
Zach, no, wait, you know what? It was good. No, Zach does a good job imitating me. That's fine. But let me make this very loud and clear for Mr. Gelb, and I hope he hears this. I hope his ears are percolating right now because I'm coming right at you, Zach.
Oh, no.
Let me tell you something, Zach. I've done shows here for 3 years now. I have never, ever, ever spent the first block of an hour talking about anybody else in the industry, let alone another host. Zach, I got a lot of respect for you. There's no question you have to have more success than I have in this industry, and rightfully so. But I am very disappointed that you spent the first segment of your third hour talking about me. Zach Gelb, you're better than that. You are. And so, yeah, I asked if I could host a show one time. Of course I did. He's got a great platform. He's in front of like 8 people. I asked that. And Gelb said he's happy to have me host. So let's put that out in the open. That's okay. That's okay, Zach. And you know what? I'm damn well good enough to host your show. I'm not saying I do the kind of job that you would, but it would be similar. Let's just be fair-minded about this stuff. If you haven't even heard what I said about you, don't spend an entire segment clowning on me. And I like Zach Gelb as a person. He's been good to me. But he was out of bounds for doing that. Bart, I'll say this again. I have nothing but respect for Zach Gelb. But when you tug at my cape, Zach, I'm gonna come back at you full throttle. So just be ready for that, my guy.
Do you understand that you have now spent the total of about a whole segment talking about how you would not talk about this for a whole segment?
First of all,
I love the threats, too. Because I'm not kidding. He must have said 400 times last night how much respect he has for me. But if you tug on someone's cape, he's going to punch back and he's going to end this. I am so concerned. Let me tell you. When I rolled over last night at 3 a.m. Eastern time, I couldn't go back to bed. I was shaking. I got sick. I was ill. I saw the boogeyman of David Shepard. Like, what is his knockout shot going to be? Like, what is he going to do? You know, I'm going to be like Ray Allen in the NBA Finals, and I'm going to make you look like Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs. You know, I would never, ever talk about another radio host on CBS Sports Radio with my time. Instead, I would just lecture everyone about the history of basketball and Dr. James Naismith, okay? And I'll give you a 45-minute history lesson with Dr. James Naismith. Like, come on, Shep. His show's called the Good Shepherd Show. I'll give him a free advertisement here.
The Sensitive Shepherd Show with Dave Shepard on CBS Sports Radio.
Maybe that's what we should start calling his show. So sensitive. And then he's like, oh, get an athletic competition with Gelb because he could run a bunch of miles and he trains with some, like, college basketball team. All right, go ahead, Shep. You want to do an Oklahoma drill? Like, is that what we want to do? Man, I like Shep. I'll pull the Shepherd. I like Shep before I give him a negative compliment or a negative comment. But, man, can we let Bart do the show? Even Bart was like, you've now spent about a full segment worth on him. That was my favorite part about it. So, good luck to Shep. And I will just say, the time he did ask me, and I have no problem if Shep wants to fill in here. But the time, Samter may.
Yeah, that might be a different story.
Yeah, but the time he asked me, it was one of the more awkward moments of my life. I was standing with 3 other people in this company 2 minutes before we got on the air, and he just bombarded and he said, do you mind if I fill in one day? And then went on to tell Stu he should be the next program director of CBS Sports Radio. You know, Shep is telling me how to do my show. Maybe Shep should apply for the programming position. Could you imagine those critiques? Oh, we didn't talk enough basketball. Okay? You know, you got to talk about Damian Lillard and the way that he runs the pick and roll with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Okay. All right, it's the Sensitive Shepherd Show on CBS Sports Radio. Oh, jeez Louise. Like, I can't talk now about other radio hosts. I can't talk about other people in the industry because big bad David Shepard is against that. Because one of the legendary hosts, Scotty Farrell on the bench, who Shep loves, and I adore Farrell, he would never talk about another radio host, right? Come on.
I do have to ask, though. He said, if you pull on my cape, what the hell cape are you wearing?
Got a few holes in it.
Is it Super Shepherd?
It's from a thrift store.
Is he Batman? Like, what cape are you wearing? And secondly, why are you wearing a cape, dude? You're not a superhero. You're a radio host. If he goes on the air one day wearing a cape, he's got bigger issues, I think.
Jeez Louise. All righty. Let's get to Brian Gutekunst. Can we talk about this? Are we allowed to talk about this? Is he going to give an extension for Jordan Love?
We'll go down that road. You know, I think certainly I think that'll be important for our football team to have some stability there. Jordan and his representation, I think they're really good people, so we'll start working towards that, sometime this next couple months.
Yeah, they got to get a deal done. Even though it could be a little bit premature, they believe in Jordan Love, so it behooves you to get a deal done now, then wait until after the contract expires when the price you would think would only go up. Also, Shep was annoyed that I was talking about Taylor Swift.
he was like, it's a shame that Zach talks about Taylor Swift with an accomplished host like Bart Winkler.
Here is Charles Barkley on the haters of Taylor Swift. This courtesy of the King Charles Show on CNN.
I'll just say, I'm going to look right in that camera. If you're screaming at Swift saying she ruined her, you're just a loser. You're just a loser or a jackass. You can be A or B.
One of the two.
One of the two.
I love Charles Barkley. I absolutely do. And he's 100% right. You are a loser or a jackass if Taylor Swift going to a football game annoys you. Like, I don't understand what people get annoyed about. That they show her on TV for less than 44 seconds? Like, I think that just because, Samter, we live in a society now where people just like to complain about things.
And my issue is, listen, I understand it might be Taylor Swift overhaul, but it's not her fault. She's going to a game to watch her boyfriend play in the NFL with her boyfriend's family, which is what most girlfriends would do if their boyfriend, husband, whatever, played in a sport. So I don't blame her for that. It's not her fault. If you want someone to blame CBS, blame NBC, blame Fox, blame ESPN, blame them for showing them on camera, blame the cameramen, blame the producers, blame the on-air talent. Don't blame her for going. She's sitting in a box. She's trying to be private. She's back there half the time. She's not really in the front showing her face the entire time. But as soon as she goes out there, she celebrates a touchdown. She's the bad guy. Shut up.
I like it. Fiery Samter back from some vacation.
Well, she's dating my tight end, so I have to defend her. I haven't gotten to gloat about that yet either.
Yeah, well, that's what happens. You take off a few weeks after the conference championship game. We don't wait for you. We keep this thing moving. We don't stop just to cater to your needs, Samter. We'll get to you, though.
Well, you just said that, it's the Winkler and Shep show, so this must be the Gelb and Samter show.
Maybe you should just be talking more than me, because it seems like with Shep, he just thinks that's his show as well. Maybe it's a Samter show. I'll just
do
take
a full
off the next
segment on
2
Shep
hours.
next. Let's go.
All righty. Zach Gelb Show coming on back, CBS Sports Radio.
Let's talk some basketball next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. So we're going to Vegas on Sunday. We fly out. We'll be doing 5 kick-ass shows for you Monday through Friday next week on Radio Row. We have some big-time guests already booked, and I mean big-time guests. So a tip of the cap to one Michael Santer. Now we just got to make sure that they all show up, and we don't have anyone like run off set with us. You know, Shep may be sabotaging the show and already reaching out to all those guests to tell them to not come on the show. And maybe that's why the YouTube stream wasn't working earlier in the program. It could have been Shep just at the end of the show last night playing around with the wires behind here. But looking forward to going out to Vegas, having some fun, and delivering you what I think is the best coverage from Radio Row anywhere in the country. You know, I've been to now over 10 Radio Rows. I got to see how many I've actually been to. But I think we will do a phenomenal job next week, and just sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and have some fun. I know it's a different show next week, and it is crazy going from guest to guest to guest, but I think we do bring out some of the best out of the guests that we do end up getting, and I always feel like our interviews are different than any other show with what we're able to do, and also just be at the Super Bowl and, you know, the platform that we have here on CBS Sports Radio. So we appreciate you first and foremost, the most. But all that nice stuff doesn't come without a complaint. Here's my complaint. And I don't know where Santer lies on this. I don't know where Stu lies on this. And Santer and Stu could give me their opinion coming up momentarily. I'm already sick and tired of the Brock Purdy coverage. I don't need to hear Cam Newton say that there are 10 players or Brock is the 10th best player on the San Francisco 49ers. I am already past this conversation of game manager and, is he a good quarterback? And hey, full disclosure, I'm someone that in September said he's a game manager. But the conversation about it doesn't lead you anywhere. Because here's what happens next Sunday. Brock Purdy plays awesome, wins the Super Bowl, and people will praise him, or people will say he's a product of the system. That's what happens if they win. If they lose, everyone's going to say, see, this is why Brock Purdy isn't all that, and maybe that the 49ers should go explore a Kirk Cousins, or maybe try to go for the second year in a row, hit back up Tom Brady. Or can they do better? Can they go get somebody else? And that conversation to me is just ludicrous, because Brock Purdy in the playoffs has done enough to prove that he should be the starting quarterback for the 49ers next year. He has. But there's no winning this conversation, because it's almost turned into, this is probably an extreme, but you'll hear my point when I explain it. It's almost turned into the LeBron MJ conversation. And what I mean by that is the LeBron MJ conversation is one, when it's suggested for me to do it, I always object to it. And I absolutely detest that conversation. And most times I refuse to do it. Because what happens with the LeBron MJ conversation is you have the LeBron fans absolutely trash MJ, and they don't listen, to the other side where the MJ fans just absolutely trash LeBron James. There's no conversation. And don't get me wrong, I could be loud, I could be bombastic, I could hammer home my point on the radio, but I always listen to the other side. I will always encourage the other side of the conversation. Like, if you listen to me and you say, I disagree with what this guy Zach Gelb says, I always encourage you. Give me a call at 855-212-4CBS. 855-212-4227. Now, we don't wait for you for 9 years to make that point. You got to be ready when we go to you to make the point. This is not a waiting room where we wait for you to make the point. When you call, we value our listeners' time. We expect you to be ready to go. And if you can't keep up, if you can't hang, if you can't make sense in trying to articulate your point, then I get rid of you. But I will always allow someone to make the point. But there's a lot of times, and I learned this early on with the MJ LeBron debate, I could do the best 15 minutes of radio ever. And the moment we open up the phones, it's just such a divisive topic and such a heated topic that it's just screaming, not listening to what was being said, and just saying what you want to say and not hearing the other side. And that's almost the point now where we're at with the Brock Purdy conversation, where you could think he's a game manager, you could think he's an elite quarterback, you could think he's a good but not great quarterback. There's no listening. There's no conversation. There's no back and forth, because in a weird way, Brock Purdy, to no fault of his own, has been polarizing. He is now a polarizing topic of conversation for a story that is fantastic. He was the last pick in the draft. The last 2 years, he's been to an NFC title game, and now he's been to a Super Bowl. He has had comebacks. There was no expectation when Brock Purdy got into the league. And maybe if he was a first-round pick, this conversation wouldn't be there. But because of where he was drafted, being Mr. Irrelevant, there's just a lot of people that don't like to say, hey, I may have got that one wrong. And you try to look for the other shoe to just drop and the real Brock Purdy to stand up. And I question going into this season what he would be. You know, it would be just dishonest if I didn't say that. I questioned what Brock Purdy was because I didn't know. I thought there were some encouraging signs last year, but I didn't think there was a big enough sample size for me to say he is definitely going to be a success. And no crap, you need great players to win in this league. If Brock Purdy is with the Patriots right now, is Brock Purdy playing this level of football? No. But that doesn't mean he can't go anywhere and not have success. Like I said yesterday, I'd rather have Brock Purdy over Tua Tagovailoa. I think if you put Brock Purdy on the Dolphins would have won a playoff game this year. I really do believe that. And you have a lot of talent in Miami. You got a lot of talent in San Francisco. Say what you want. You could only deal with what you're working with and what gets put on your plate in front of you. And for Brock Purdy, he has Debo. He has Brandon Ayuk. He has Kittle. He has Williams. He has Christian McCaffrey. He's got tremendous players around him. But ultimately, it all comes down to, can you deliver on what Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't? Can you deliver on what Trey Lance couldn't? And that's a Lombardi trophy. And that's a championship. And in the NFL, there were few teams entering this season that there was a legitimate feeling it's Super Bowl or bust. The Niners were one of them. And they hitched their wagon to Brock Purdy. And is Brock Purdy the reason why the 49ers are winning? I wouldn't say he is the reason, but he is a reason. And that's coming from someone that said he was a game manager before this year. Right now, I think Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. I'm not ready to call him a top 5 quarterback. I'm not ready to say he's a great quarterback. I'm not ready to say he's elite, but he's good. He is extremely effective. And you've seen this team not get off to the best of starts in the playoffs. Part of it is his problem, part of it not. And against the Packers and against the Lions, when he needed to, he stepped up and he delivered. So I know as we get set to embark and go to Las Vegas, it's one of the biggest topic of conversations going into the Super Bowl. Obviously, the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce thing is enormous. But that's not an on-the-field story. That's an off-the-field story. And when you go into this game, the first two things I think about from a coverage standpoint is the historical significance of Mahomes winning this third Super Bowl, where you have some, and I think it's premature. He'd be a Hall of Famer if he retired tomorrow, but it's premature to say he's better than Brady. You've already had some say it. So he wins another Super Bowl. It just further enhanced that conversation of how many Super Bowls will Patrick Mahomes win? And the other is, can Brock Purdy do what the Niners have been close to accomplishing for the last few seasons? They have been in NFC title games. They have been in a Super Bowl. They have been in a Super Bowl up against Kansas City with a 10-point lead with 7.5 to play. And Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't get the job done. Jimmy Garoppolo got the ball batted down at the line of scrimmage by Chris Jones, and Jimmy Garoppolo overthrew Emmanuel Sanders. We knew Brock Purdy could get back to an NFC title game. I didn't know if Brock Purdy could win an NFC title game entering this season. He displayed he can this year. And now it's about finishing the job and winning the Lombardi trophy. But this conversation from now until kickoff, it's just one that I've already had enough with. And it's one that drives me bonkers because if you're saying Brock Purdy is a game manager, which I have said before in the past, I feel like there is vitriol there now with a lot of people where they're using it as a backhanded kind of way to just further what they said. And in the other way, I don't think it's fair to say that he's the number one reason why they're winning as well. There's no like middle ground here. And it just turns into like a really ugly, nasty fight. And hey, if you listen to the last segment, there's a lot of fights that I'm willing to participate in. This one, I just don't have the energy to do it because I don't think anyone wins really in this conversation. It is a fun story. I like fun stories. I think Brock Purdy's a fun story. Hope Brock Purdy plays his tail off and wins Super Bowl MVP. I have no problem with that. But I know if he does not play a good game, the people that are going to be playing the I told you so crowd are going to be insufferable. That's coming from someone who also said he was a game manager. I will not do the I told you so because he's already proven that he's belonging then some.
Well, to be fair, you didn't call him a game manager. You called him a system quarterback.
Okay.
Similar, but different, right? System quarterback could still be elite, just only elite because of that one system.
He's better than a game manager.
Right. I think a game manager kind of just says he doesn't make mistakes, but he doesn't do anything great. System quarterback means he might do great things, but he's only doing those great things because of the system he's in.
Yeah.
So I think it's nuanced.
Synonymous, yeah.
Synonymous to an extent, but also not exactly apples to apples. But with that being said, I think if he's anything, I don't think he's a game manager. You watch some of the plays and the throws he makes.
His legs, the athleticism.
Yeah, he does spectacular things. He's not a game manager. Is he a system quarterback is the better question. That's the question that you've raised. And there's no way to know that. You can't know if he's a system quarterback because unless he's not in this system or
and you
want to
know why this conversation's stupid? And maybe this is just personal for me. For 15 years, I heard people say, Tom Brady is a system quarterback. And Tom Brady is a product of Bill Belichick's system. Now everyone says, oh, it was more Brady than it was Belichick. Let me be clear with the Belichick part. Brady needed to go to Belichick and needed to be in that environment in the first part of the dynasty where they were constructed to show that he could belong and then some. But then eventually, Brady became so big, and there were so many changes just naturally when you're a part of that for 20 years, that it showed, oh, Brady is really the system. And Brady was not a great individual quarterback early on in his tenure. But as time got better, you saw him put up these prodigious stats. And I'm not saying this is necessarily what's going to happen with Brock Purdy, but with Brock Purdy, he is doing what is asked of him right now. And maybe one day when a Kittle retires or McCaffrey slows down or Debo slows down, then we'll get the true answer of how much it was Brock Purdy. And Brady showed you that it was like 60% him, 40% Belichick. But right now, Brock Purdy doesn't need to be the All-Pro. He doesn't need to be the MVP of the league because this roster is constructed to win. And eventually there will be adjustments and you will adapt and you'll see what life is like without some of these players. But right now, he's just doing what's asked of him. And he's doing it at a very skillful way and at a very high level. And he's having a really good season. So the system part, yeah, he needs Kyle Shanahan. He needs these players around him. Like if he went to New England, I said this earlier, we're not talking about Brock Purdy right now. But you get an opportunity early, and then it's what you do with it and how you enhance that.
And I think the other part of it also, I mean, you bring up Tom Brady with the whole system quarterback thing. If you really want to make an apples-to-apples comparison, just stick with the 49ers. Joe Montana, Brock Purdy. Right now, Joe Montana might be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He won 4 Super Bowls. He had Roger Craig, Jerry Rice, John Taylor, Brent Jones. He had Ronnie Lott, Charles Haley, Deion Sanders was on some of those teams. I mean, you talk about elite of the elite, and Bill Walsh is the all-time greatest mastermind of offensive play calling maybe ever with that West Coast offense and his coaching tree, who clearly he had the greatest assistant coaches there with him too. So you want to say that like Brock Purdy is assistant quarterback because of the guys he plays with and his coach, then let's go back to Joe Montana and say the same damn thing. So at the end of the day, if you're a good quarterback with whatever system you're in, with whatever players are around you, if you're winning and you're doing great things, who cares what the system is or not? You're doing great things where you are and with who you have, and that's all that matters.
And name me a quarterback that hasn't won without great talent around him.
And we talk about Brady, even when he didn't have receivers, he had Gronk and Aaron Hernandez. He had great defenses like Richard Seymour and Asante Samuel and all those other guys. Every player wins a championship. Rodney Harrison.
I don't even need to bring up Aaron Hernandez.
There's a million. Well, there's a million of these
guys. He never
guys.
won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
We don't need to bring him up.
Well, and he also didn't knock that ball out of Tyree's hand, which is crazy.
Oh, are you talking about Rodney Harrison?
Yeah.
Well, Rodney Harrison won 2 Super Bowls.
Oh, I thought you were saying that Rodney Harrison was...
No, I was saying Rodney Harrison's one of the great postseason. That 6-game run that he had in New England was unbelievable. In 2003, 2004, I was saying Aaron Hernandez did not win a Super Bowl.
No,
anyway.
but he was great.
Individually,
while he was playing before everything went down.
Yeah. I still can't get over the whole Aaron Hernandez things. I never went from liking a player more to then despising a player's guts more than Aaron Hernandez. I did not think we were talking about Aaron Hernandez today. Anyway, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll go to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama next with Tony Pauline, who will join us on the Zach Gelb Show in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. The Senior Bowl is ongoing throughout the entire week in Mobile, Alabama. And now joining us is Tony Pauline, who is there. He's a consulting editor and NFL draft analyst for Sportskeeda, and he joins us right now. Tony, I know it's been a while. Appreciate the time. How you been?
Tired at this point because it's been 3 days of Senior Bowl practice after 3 days of Shrine practice, and I'm in an airport waiting to get home after a week. So enjoyable time, but a lot of work.
So what was like the big story when you look back? I know there's a lot of chatter that goes on at the Senior Bowl. For you, what were some of the takeaways being there?
Well, from a player perspective, so many of the offensive linemen did exceptionally well, and this is going to be a good offensive lineman class, especially at the offensive tackle position. Your interior guys, Jackson Powers-Johnson of Oregon was phenomenal. Isaiah Adams of Illinois was terrific. Both of those guys helped themselves incredibly well. I think Powers-Johnson solidified himself as a late first-round pick. I think many of the offensive tackles, Fanegua of Oregon State was really, really good. He's going to go top 15. Tyler Guyton of Oklahoma was outstanding. He's going to go top 15. I think Roger Rosengarten of Washington had a terrific week. So I think overall, we're expecting it to be a real strong offensive line class, and those guys past 3 days.
When you look at the receivers, and not necessarily everyone that was there at the Senior Bowl, but we know some of the big names at the top, how many receivers do you think could potentially go in the top 10 after our Marvin Harrison Jr. probably goes forward to the Cardinals?
2, maybe 3. I do think Malik Neighbors will be a top 10 pick. Rome Odunze could be a top 10 pick. We'll see what happens. I think a lot with Odunze depends on his testing, his 40, the shuttles, and the 3-cone, because, the receiver position at the NFL these days, as we saw Jordan Addison last year, especially in the draft, you don't have to be 6'2", 215 pounds. You don't have to run a 4.32. You have to be able to separate through your routes. And it's going to be that route running, which a lot of guys did well, here at the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. Smaller guys that you wouldn't think would be early picks, but that's what the league wants. They want separation. So I think Odunze could be a top 10 pick if he tests well. I do think Malik Neighbors is also a top 10 pick.
Tony Pauline here with us. How'd the week go for Michael Penix Jr. and then also Bo Nix?
Average at best. Really the best quarterback of the week was Carter Bradley of South Alabama, ironically. He was practicing on his home field. I think with, Bo Nix wanted to come and see him show the ability to drive deep passes and hit long throws. Really didn't do that. Penix, you wanted to see some consistency. Didn't really do that. His passes were all over the place. I think overall, you wanted to see a lot from these quarterbacks, and we really did not get much.
I think it's clear, right? You have Williams, May, and Daniels. They're probably going to go 1, 2, and 3 in some order in the NFL draft. How many other quarterbacks do you then think will go in the first round?
If it was up to me, if I'm looking at it, I'm saying 0. But you never know at the quarterback position. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry. J.J. McCarthy's probably going to go late, somewhere mid to late first round, and I think that should be it. But you never know at the quarterback position because it's such a high need, and they're always so overdrafted. You could have a 5th quarterback selected in the first round. I think after McCarthy, any other quarterback in the first round is a major reach. Maybe Bo Nix, definitely not Michael Penix, though.
How would you rate, by the way, Daniels, Williams, and May? How would you go 1, 2, 3? 1, the guy you want the most, 3, the guy that you want the least?
Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels. They're different types of quarterbacks. Caleb Williams is a dynamic playmaker. He's a dynamic personality on and off the field. You're going to hear a lot of criticisms leading up to the draft about his mechanics. He's an arm thrower. He throws a lot of flat-footed passes. Some of those passes that he made on Saturday, he's not going to be able to make on Sunday. Drake May is more of your traditional pocket passer. He's a lot bigger, but he's also mobile. He's got some mobility, and he can make all the throws, and he can make them all with dead-on accuracy, and he's an outstanding passer. The problem is there were a lot of bumps in his game last year. And then there's Jaden Daniels, who really has been on the rise since the second half of the 2022 season. Heisman Trophy winner, but that really doesn't factor into the scouting grade. It's just that he has consistently gotten better and better and better. He gets it between the ears. I don't know that he's as physically talented as the other guys when you look at arm talent, but the guy's been a winner, and you always like to get those quarterbacks coming into the draft that are coming out of playing their best college football.
Wrap it up with Tony Pauline, who joins us right now. Just circling back to what you said about Michael Penix Jr., it felt like after the semifinal game against Texas, right, he could go as high as a top 15 pick. And then after the national championship game about going up against Michigan, it felt like he was a fringe first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick. Is it as just simple as the performance in the national championship game just started to ruin his stock a bit?
No, I don't think, you don't scout a guy off of one game, and a guy doesn't move that much off of a game or two. But you look at Penix, and I know people love him. He's got some great highlights. He's a great story, a lot of credit to him, but he's overaged. He's had a lot of injuries, and when you're overaged, it means that scouts look at it that you don't have a great amount of upside potential. You are basically tapped out. He's not going to get that much better. You factor in the injuries, and he's gotten a rap as a guy who's not a real hard worker, going back to his days at Indiana. Not a guy that's really willing to do the necessary things off the field to make him a better quarterback on the field. Deserves all the credit in the world for the way he rebounded at Washington. It was a great season. But again, it's a projection to the next level, and especially the streakiness, because a lot of times you didn't know what you were getting from Michael Penix, game to game, quarter to quarter. As you saw in that national championship game, he wasn't a guy that consistently played at a high level a la Jaden Daniels.
There's a reputation about Penix that way, about the lack of hard work, because I feel like that's all I heard the last year was all the injuries overcome and all the work that he put into it to get what he did the last 2 years.
Well, I mean, yes, he had to rehab injuries to get back onto the field, but a lot of people said if he put the work in before, you wouldn't have seen a lot of those injuries.
Interesting. I wrap it up with Tony Pauline, who joins us right now. To you, is Marvin Harrison Jr. the best player in this draft?
Number one player on my board. It's not even a question. I got a good amount of space between he and the next highest rated player on my board, which is Caleb Williams.
So when you look at the first three picks, right, I think a lot of people just believe that, right, the Bears will take Williams 1, then the Commanders will go May 2, and the Patriots will go Daniels 3. Is there any way you see one of those teams passing on a quarterback to take Marvin Harrison Jr. in the top 3?
Passing, no. I mean, as I wrote earlier this week, there are teams like the Denver Broncos and Sean Payton who are desperate to move up to get a quarterback. The Giants would like to get up and move a quarterback. But unless you're going to put some sort of major blockbuster deal in front of one of those three teams, they're not going to move down. Could they trade down and not take one of the quarterbacks? I'd put that percentage under 5%. Could they shock us and pass on a quarterback? I'd put that at less than 0.01%.
And then just the last thing that I'll ask you being there in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl, what was the reaction today when we all kind of found out that Dan Quinn's going to be the new coach of the Commanders?
I had reported that earlier in the week that was the word out of Mobile, if you follow me. So yeah. I don't think it was a shock to anybody. I mean, I think there was a shock in the whole coaching carousel, starting with Dallas deciding to keep McCarthy, and then the way some of the things shook out. But I mean, Quinn was really the best prospect, the best coaching candidate left, except for Mike Vrabel. And as I said last night, it looked like all along that Vrabel's just going to take the year off.
Why didn't the Commanders further explore Belichick? Because some people ask that with him being available.
Well, I mean, because the Commanders want to do things the right way, and doing things the right way is getting Adam Peterson as general manager and building that sort of culture. If you bring in Bill Belichick, he wants to run the whole thing. He wants to, even though he's, as I said last night in the article, even though he's told teams that, no, I don't want to do it, they're afraid that once he gets in, he's going to want to run every single detail of the organization as he did in New England for so long. And unless he has that great quarterback, that one right quarterback, like a Tom Brady who's a perfectionist, it's not going to work. That's why he didn't get the job in Atlanta.
He is Tony Pauline, consulting editor and NFL draft analyst at Sportskeeda. Tony, appreciate the time. Safe travels.
Thanks for having me.
There you go. Tony Pauline joining us on CBS Sports Radio. The only thing I'll push back on, and Tony, right, he knows these prospects inside and out. I have not heard that Michael Penix Jr. has a poor work ethic. That was the only part that I didn't get of that conversation. And I do believe that's a big story going into the NFL draft. Where is he going to go? Because right now I think it's easy to just say that the first three picks in the draft Williams, May, and Daniels. And then, let's be real, Marvin Harrison Jr. probably going to go 4 to the Arizona Cardinals. But then how many other quarterbacks are going to go in the first round? Like, Boyle, I know you watch a ton of college football. I think you would agree with everything I just said about 1 through 4 of the NFL draft. You're going to have the 3 quarterbacks go and then Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yes. Is that what I would do? No. But
yeah, different conversation.
In all likelihood of what will happen, yes, I agree.
So then after that, how many quarterbacks do you believe are going to go in the first round? Like the potential candidates I get are Penix Jr., Bo Nix, J.J. McCarthy. Like, I'm a huge Michigan fan.
I know you are.
I don't think J.J. McCarthy's a first-round quarterback. I would not draft him in the first round. I wouldn't draft Bo Nix in the first round. Michael Penix Jr. overcame a lot of adversity and was a rock star the last 2 years, but I probably wouldn't draft him in the first round either. Like, I only think there's 3 first-round quarterbacks in this draft. Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, and then also Drake May. And I think that's it.
Yeah, now, as somebody that anytime I post a winning bet, you go, well, where are the losses? I don't think anybody was higher on Michael Penix than me.
Sensitive here. First Shep, now you. What were the days at CBS Sports Radio where we could have a little fun and make some jokes here?
I'm just saying. You're always where are the losses? Where are the losses? Nobody was higher on Penix than I was, and I legitimately thought he was going to have the game of his life.
The Pac-12 before the season started.
Yeah, and I legitimately thought he was going to have the game of his life against Michigan, and that would have put him in the conversation for number 1 overall.
I don't think it would have ever went past Caleb Williams.
I think his arm is incredible. I think he immediately has a top 10 arm in the NFL. I love his pocket presence. Obviously, you worry about the reconstructed shoulder and the twice reconstructed knee. So, I totally understand if he doesn't go in the first round solely because of that. But what he has done on the field, I think he is worth a first-round pick.
So the part to me, I think, like when we get back to the Brock Purdy conversation, like, could Brock Purdy go anywhere and have the success? Yeah. The fit does matter. Like, you want to tell me Atlanta is getting Michael Penix Jr.? I think there's enough around him. You want to tell me the Vikings draft Michael Penix Jr.? I think there's enough around there for him to go into a solid foundation. But if you put Michael Penix Jr., let's say, on the Patriots, who have nothing right now,
wouldn't be good.
I don't think that would be good. And like as a Pats fan, I'm sitting there. I think the best player in the draft is Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's the best player in the draft. I'd be fine if the Pats at 3 took Marvin Harrison Jr. and punted a year to find the quarterback. But as the more and more of this goes on, I think they're taking Jaden Daniels, and I am intrigued by the upside of him with the mobility that he has, because the Patriots really for the last 20, 25 years have quarterbacks that are not mobile.
Yeah. Now let me slap my play like a champion today sign and say that I think Joe Alt might be the best overall player in that draft.
I'm like, oh, here comes the Sam Hartman honk, the Hartman honk of Boyle.
No, not at all. But, I mean, this is what happens every year, right? We're like, all right, maybe 2 quarterbacks in the top 5, maybe 4 in the first round, and then, we hit February, we hit March, and these general managers, every year they fall in love with the allure of a quarterback that could bring their team back to the playoffs, and desperation really is the reason why we end up seeing probably 5 quarterbacks get taken in the first round this year.
We know 3 will go right now, maybe at most 4. But also, I do believe, like, there's been years, like you said, Malik Willis was supposed to be a first-round pick. Didn't go to the 3rd round. Only Kenny Pickett went. Obviously, last year, Will Levis falling out of the first round stunned anybody. We had 3 quarterbacks go in the top 4 or 5 picks, and then no one until the 2nd round. And then there's been those other years, the Trevor Lawrence draft, 5 in the first round. Yep. The Baker Mayfield, well, I guess we could call the Josh Allen Lamar Jackson draft, 5 in the first round as well. So you truly don't know, but the conversation is always centered around the quarterback. All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll get to a Zach Gelb Show PSA next. Update time first. Here is Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, Dan Quinn has his 2nd head coaching gig. He is staying in the NFC East. He is the new head coach of the Washington Commanders. Quinn was the Cowboys' defensive coordinator for the past 3 years. This last season, they ranked 5th in total yards allowed and points allowed and led the NFL with 6 defensive touchdowns. Dan Quinn fills the final head coaching vacancy this offseason after the Seahawks hired Ravens DC Mike McDonald. Baltimore has quickly filled that void. They have promoted former Raven Zachary Orr, their inside linebackers coach, to be their new defensive coordinator. NBA news on some injured superstars. Reigning MVP Joel Embiid out for tonight's Sixers game at the Jazz with a left knee injury that he suffered in Tuesday's loss to the Warriors. He did not travel with the team to Utah, instead returning to Philly for further evaluation. Before Tuesday's game, Embiid had missed 2 straight with soreness in that same knee. He can only miss 5 more this year before being ineligible for postseason awards like the MVP. Meanwhile, the Knicks have said that Julius Randle will be out 2 to 3 weeks with his dislocated shoulder injury. He will be reevaluated again at that time. Possible playoff preview tonight when the Knicks host the Pacers at the Garden. Finally, the most famous rivalry in basketball looks a little bleaker tonight. Lakers and the Celtics at TD Garden. Both LeBron James and Anthony Davis are out. Finally, Pebble Beach Pro-Am first round. Patrick Cantley, the leader, 6 under. I'm Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Let's just say I'm an NFL GM, and I call you up and I go, Kalen DeBoer, I'm thinking about using an early first-round pick on Michael Penix Jr. Why should I use it? Sell me on your quarterback.
Yeah, I think he makes all the throws from an arm talent standpoint. I mean, he throws a ball and he can throw it wherever he wants, as far down the field. He can throw it from college hash on a line. He throws a really catchable ball. Just the way his football IQ, just ability to check protections and correspond blitzes and blitz patterns to coverages. It flows really fast for him. He's taken a lot of reps at a high college level, and I think all that's applicable to be able to make that transition to the next level.
Here's Zach Gelb.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. It is a Thursday. That means it's time for a Zach Gelb Show PSA.
Warning. It's a Thursday. What do you have to say? It's the weekly Zach Gelb Show PSA.
Who's with me? Let's go! Come on!
So before I start my PSA, I try to be a good human being. And I have not asked this question yet to Moist Mike. But now Moist Mike is back from his vacation in beautiful Florida. And he was traveling for the first time with his little one and also his dog, too, which I didn't know. And they were packed like between... I was going to call your wife Mrs. Moist, but that just doesn't sound right. Between Mrs. Samter, Miss Samter, Mr. Samter, the baby, and your dog. You had, what, 12 bags for you people?
Don't even get me started, man. I wanted to murder everybody, and then by the end of the trip...
Calm down! Jeez, murder this is your family!
No, not just my family, just like the entire, just everybody, the world, okay. Like the planet. I wanted to go scorched earth. I was going to throw bags into the Hudson. It got ugly.
Yeah. Did you have a good traveling experience then, though? Was the baby fine on the plane?
Once we got on the plane, getting those 12 bags on the plane was a nightmare. Once we were on the plane, our little Alex was an angel. Like, nice. there were other babies on the plane
Uncle
crying
Zach
and screaming.
Uncle Zach is proud. There we go.
Other babies on the plane crying and screaming. Our little girl was giggling and laughing. She kept reaching to touch the lights up above. She was opening the window shades and giggling out the window. She had the best time ever. The stewardesses and flight attendants were all walking by, giving her special treatment because she was so wonderful. Mm-hmm. However, getting on and off was no fun.
So I actually went out last week with my sister, my mom, my dad, and my niece, and we went to an Italian restaurant. And it was kind of like a smaller Italian restaurant where you know everybody. The entire restaurant was lit up because of my niece. So that is pretty cool when the little one just overtakes like a restaurant or an airplane or something like that. But I'm glad you guys had a good experience. Something I don't get is, and this is not me being like a jerk, you guys aren't big people. How do you have 12 bags? Like, your shirts aren't that big.
No, so basically what we did, because we knew that traveling with the baby for the first time, we just didn't know how it was going to go. So we booked an extra seat.
Overpacked.
Right? Yeah. So tickets to Florida were not that expensive, so we booked an extra seat. We had the entire row, all the three of us.
Nice.
So we had 3 carry-ons, 3 personal items.
Okay.
The baby's bag doesn't count as an item. The dog doesn't count as an item. The baby doesn't count as an item. So basically, we're carrying the dog, the baby's bag, plus 3 personal items, plus 3 carry-on bags, plus the stroller, plus the baby's car seat, which comes out of the stroller, which goes onto the plane.
A lot of junk.
It was no fun.
Yeah. All right, here's my PSA, by the way, with airplanes. So we're all getting ready to go to Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. We leave on Sunday. There's nothing that annoys me more when you get on an airplane, the flight happens, the flight ends, and the moment the flight lands, everyone stands up. I can't stand it. Where are you going? They didn't even open the door yet, and when you're sitting in the 33rd row, there are 6 people to the left, 6 people to your right, and then you times that by 32. So there's a lot of people that have to leave the plane. Plane lands, stay in your seat, and when it's your turn to get out, then you get out. But being a larger person who usually sits on the aisle that's tall, I can't stand when the 115-pound girl or the 8-year-old child has to get up the moment when the plane lands, and then I'm standing there ducking my head the entire time, waiting for 30 other rows to deplane. So that's my PSA. When you travel on an airplane, don't leave the airplane until it's your turn to leave the airplane. The only way you leave the airplane when it's not your turn is if, like, part of the plane, like, falls off, like that video that I saw about a month ago. But that's my PSA.
All right, I guess I'll go next. I
heard our company booked us that airline. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I can't wait to travel with you to Vegas, man. That's going to be fun.
Santa and I are going to go out on a parachute.
I can promise you, I'm going to be the first one standing up without. No, it's funny, actually. As we landed yesterday back from Florida, my wife said first thing, she's like, what's the first thing that's going to happen as soon as we touch down? I go, people are just going to stand up and just stand there like idiots.
Yeah.
All right, so here's my PSA. I actually didn't have one, and Stu's like, do you have a PSA? I'm like, no, I don't. Actually, yes, I do. Something happened to me in Florida that drove me freaking crazy. And it drives me crazy everywhere I go and every single time this happens. All right, I have a dog. I have a small dog. He's a non-shedding, miniature little poodle that weighs 11 pounds. And
a mini poo?
He's a Shorky poo. Shih Tzu Yorkie poodle. He's a whole kind of mix of stuff.
Gotcha.
All right? Tiny, doesn't make a sound, doesn't shed, hypoallergenic, doesn't cause any problems. All right? Now, I know that people kind of take advantage of this emotional support animal thing, but for the most part, like, people don't complain when you bring your small little dog into a place, right? Mm-hmm. If you bring a big giant like Doberman or whatever, then maybe people might get uncomfortable. Maybe they're shedding or the dog shakes and there's hair everywhere. I get that. But when you have a tiny little dog that you're either holding or is not minding, not causing any problems, you're minding its own business, who cares? We're at Trader Joe's in Florida, just walking around. All the people at Trader Joe's, the entire staff, how cute is your dog? Oh, my gosh, your dog is so cute.
Were you in Boca?
Oh, can I pet your dog? Right in Boca.
Well, can I just tell you how this goes?
Yes.
Sir, you're not supposed to bring that dog in this establishment. It was probably my grandmother who said it to you.
And it wasn't anybody who worked at Trader Joe's. It was just some lady. Hey, guys, you know that Florida law says you can't bring a dog in here. 3 people at Trader Joe's just standing there laughing, looking at me, rolling their eyes.
You're an animal, Michael.
They're like, we don't care. Let your dog walk around. It doesn't matter. And this lady's screaming and yelling at my wife. We're pushing the baby in a stroller. We got food in our arms. The dog's just hanging out. Who cares? You guys can't bring a dog in here. What does it matter to you? Is the dog bothering you? Is the dog causing you a problem? Shut up, lady. Mind your own business. Get the hell out of the store and let us enjoy our food.
I thought Santa was going to say just croak, old lady.
Oh, we lost our mind on her. We're like, lady, mind your own business. You don't know what our situation is. Who do you think you are telling us what to do with our dog? Shut up and go away.
My mother just texted me, 12 bags, that's a bit much. And then she goes, it was definitely your grandmother who ripped into Michael. What do you got, Stu?
All right, mine is fast food drive-thrus. Now, there's a couple issues here, but let's just go.
Have you ever walked through the drive-thru?
I have not, but I've seen people walk through.
I did that in college.
So, last night was a fast food night for my girlfriend, myself, her sister, and her boyfriend.
Where'd you go?
We went to Wendy's.
Okay.
Can fast food drive-thrus get the order right? Now, I understand. Look, I understand. We had a big order. It was like, it's like $40-something. It wasn't cheap. But
you have some substances that Brian does in the YouTube chat? Is that why you're getting some fast food?
No, well, no. But it's just like, can we just get the order right? We're spending all this money, and can we not get back and have the wrong sandwich, the wrong order? It just drives me nuts.
So they messed up your order entirely?
No, I mean, not entirely. There's only like one or two things wrong, but when one or two things are wrong, it kind of ruins the party, if you will.
There was no body parts, though,
Thank
in the
God,
fast food
no.
order.
Yes,
you didn't
no.
get like a finger or something.
And that would be
like
a disaster. That'd be bad.
Or like a little piece of a rat's ear.
Ugh.
I've read stuff like that.
Same.
There's been fingers, and not chicken fingers, like actual human fingers in fast food, and then like a little sliver of a rat's ear. But that is annoying. And I do Uber Eats a lot. And when they mess up
That
an
too,
Uber Eats
yeah.
and you've been waiting an hour for the Uber Eats to come,
Ruins it.
It's so obnoxious because they'll refund you, but I want the food that I ordered. So did you not check in the bag? Because the bag's all greasy and everything. You don't
We
want to put your hands
checked, and
through
it's like it has like 4 sandwiches and all this other stuff. It's hard to actually go through the actual sandwiches. You have to unwrap it, and that's just a pain in the you-know-what.
Yeah, all righty. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. That is a Thursday Zach Gelb Show PSA. Wow, my mother is just torching you guys. There is nothing in the world that my mom hates more than fast food. She goes, Stu's eating habits are disgusting. What a thing for Mama Gelb to
fast food like once a month.
She went from just eviscerating Hickey. Maybe this is where I get it. Like she used to, she went after Hickey the day he did the push-ups in the studio and we did some cookie challenge. I forget what it was. Oh no, it was a Pat Riley challenge. When Pat Riley went after the media and said that they couldn't do push-ups, and Hickey like banged out 40 push-ups, and my mom goes, yeah, Hickey's got to work a little bit on his form. Now in the last segment, my mother attacked Samter for bringing 12 bags to the airport, and then also attacked Stu for, to quote, his disgusting eating habits.
I will say this.
Tread lightly, it's my mother.
Your mom is not wrong for going after us. My wife and I thoroughly admit that we way overpacked. We were just trying to be overly cautious.
You're new parents.
And we also weren't staying at a hotel. We were staying at a family member's house, so we had to bring stuff to there. But yeah, we learned for next time what we can and cannot avoid packing next time.
Now, I'm not a father that I know of, but I will just say, like, if I was a new parent, I would be paranoid. I would be paranoid, and I would overpack. I overpack now. I would overpack if I had a little one and I was responsible for something. I love it. Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. You know, we're about to talk about the state of Wisconsin and the Green Bay Packers hiring a new defensive coordinator, Jeff Hafley, the head coach of Boston College, who did a nice job at BC. But he is bolting being a college head coach to being a defensive coordinator with the Green Bay Packers. We'll get to that in just a second. And the bigger part of the conversation, how we kind of now control NIL and the transfer portal and how a lot of these coaches are complaining about it. But is there merit to their complaints where for so many years the players would be the odd person out of legally getting any of the pie? Now they're starting to get the pie, and the coaches are the ones where they're not necessarily saying it's wrong that the players are getting money, but how much chaos and headaches it creates for them. And you see a lot of legendary coaches in college basketball hanging it up in college football, right? A guy like Chris Peterson retires, and he was on with us a few weeks ago, has no interest of ever really coaching again, it seems like, because of the new era of college football. Nick Saban walks away. That has to factor into the new landscape of college football with the transfer portal and the NIL and how you're basically recruiting players to come to your university and then recruiting them every day to stay at your university. And sometimes the player may leave and it may not be for the best reason. So I'll get back to that in just a second. But as I mentioned, the state of Wisconsin, there is a loyal listener that we've had back to, I think, the weekend overnights. His name is Jameson in Milwaukee. Now, this dude, Jameson, is a chef. He has a cookie company, and then he also then posts like the most delicious photos of food. And it's actually obnoxious, but I appreciate what he does. It's obnoxious that he tweets me all these food items, and I'd be upset if he didn't. But the reason why it's obnoxious is because they all look so good, and they all look so gourmet. He just randomly tweeted me at 4:53 p.m. Eastern, fried chicken tacos are the best. And his fried chicken tacos, because he could be a chef at a restaurant, and right, he is, has like this company. They look so bleeping good. And it just triggered this thought. He once sent Hickey and I like a batch of cookies. And now, you have a chocolate chip cookie. All right, there's good chocolate chip cookies. But when you then get those mega chocolate chip cookies that I wouldn't even call them just cookies. It's almost as if they're gourmet dessert on steroid cookies. So he sent us an entire batch once. And it was like a s'more cookie. And there was fudge in the cookie. It was just so bleeping good. So I'm going to do something I usually don't do in the radio. I'm begging Jameson to send us more cookies because I have Moist Mike. I have Stuart Kovacs, who have never been able to experience how tasty and how dank these cookies are. These cookies. It could be the best cookie that I've ever had. That's how good they were. And they were shipped from Milwaukee. So they went through the mailing process, sent here, multiple day shipping process, getting rattled around in the container, breaking off. And those cookies were just A+++++. So our buddy Jameson, who's tweeting and listening in Milwaukee, we welcome all your food photos, but we also hate your food photos because then my mouth is just watering for the duration of the show. Anywho, let's get to Jeff Hafley. So as I just said, leaving Boston College as a head coach, had NFL experience before, and he is going to be the Packers defensive coordinator. And Pete Thamel, Steve Sparky Pfeiffer, who runs the Fan in Milwaukee, he said the red velvet cookies that Jameson makes are the absolute best. They were just he sent us like 4 or 5 different cookies. I had no clue what I was eating. He could have poisoned me, and that could have been because I usually do not do listener food. But these were so good. He could have poisoned me, and I would have been fine if that was my last dessert. That's
you have trust issues. I mean, when Ryan in Santa Barbara sent us ice cream, you also wondered if that was going to be poisoned, and we ended up being okay. You got a lot of trust issues about our listeners here.
Ryan in Santa
have some
Barbara.
faith in our people.
Now, I'm shocked Ryan in Santa Barbara hasn't called this week. Shocked. He's not called all week. The Niners are going to the Super Bowl. Jameson is a sane human being. Ryan in Santa Barbara, I don't know how sane Ryan in Santa Barbara is. I'm not going to get shocked if we land at the airport and Ryan in Santa Barbara is there pretending to be one of the chauffeur guys with the signs, and then he's going to kidnap us and we won't even make it to Radio Row.
I'm Mr. Kruzowski. You mean Coach Krzyzewski?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Luckily, your name is easy to pronounce, so we won't get that wrong.
Oh, you never know. I get into an Uber now. No one gets my name right.
Hi, I'm Mr. Gelb. You mean Zach Gelb?
That's basically how
me.
Shep says it anyway. He goes, Gelb.
Hey, guys.
Yeah. All right. I didn't know Mickey Mouse was joining the show. That was your Halloween costume. See? But anyway, Pete Thamel says, Jeff Hafley wants to go coach football again in a league that is all about football. That's what a source told Pete Thamel at ESPN. College coaching has become fundraising, NIL, and recruiting your own team and transfers. There's no time to coach football anymore. So I'm kind of conflicted on this. And the reason why I'm conflicted on this is part of me wants to tell these coaches that make millions and millions and millions of dollars, tough luck that your job got a little bit harder and a lot harder because of the fact that now the players are getting money and they have the freedom to transfer now with this whole legal matter, I guess, as many times as they want. So I almost want to say, after years of the players getting screwed, suck it up. But then on the other part of it, I do understand how much goes into recruiting. And could you imagine spending 3 years on a kid to recruit them to come to your college? You get them to commit. And then maybe it's not best that they get on the field right away. And you tell them they have to sit for a year. Or they get sparing playing time on the field. And then they go, up, bleep this coaching staff, I'm out. Like, I get it. It's part of life. But the part that I struggle with here is I wish there were guidelines. I wish there were rules. Like, you see what's going on with Florida State. You see what's going on with Tennessee. Like, all this stuff. It's the Wild West right now. And I do believe the NCAA and the infraction committee is very selective. And they are very selective in what they tend to pursue and what they tend to just kick down the road for many years. And it makes no sense to me why the colleges and the college coaches legally can't facilitate these NIL conversations. And the entire thing, I don't want to say it seems slimy, but even when this was supposed to prevent rule breaking, there's going to be many rules that eventually do get broken because you opened up Pandora's box. But it is clear from a lot of coaches, and I think there's a difference from older coaches to younger coaches, and then coaches that could go one way or another in terms of, okay, they're not that old, but they're not that young. Like Jay Wright got up and walked away. He had things rolling at Villanova, made Villanova blue blood, a national brand, and you can't tell me it wasn't NIL in the transfer portal why he elected to go. Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams, yeah, they were at retirement age, but they retired because of the NIL and the transfer portal. Nick Saban, we thought this guy go coach another 5-10 years. He retired because of the transfer portal and NIL. Chris Peterson's not coming back because of the transfer portal and NIL. So yes, in one breath, I say, let me play my small violin for these coaches that complain about NIL and the transfer portal. But on the other end, when there's no laws and there's no way to control what's going on, you then wonder if these kids are making the right decisions. Or are they just following the cash? And if you want to follow the cash, you could do that. I think we've all got into a place of life where people follow the cash and you find out that it's not the best decision for you. But why are you leaving the school if you're leaving the school? What's the motives? And football requires regiment, it requires training, and it requires hard coaching. And I do think it's tough to coach now when you constantly have to be focused on NIL and the transfer portal, and there's limitations on what you could actually do. Like, we really do need a commissioner of college football that's like an actual commissioner that could actually set rules with NIL and the transfer portals, but I don't think we're anywhere close to that happening, and I have no answer to how we would get that to happen and how you would be able to relegate, I guess would be the word, this stuff. But Jeff Hafley, this one's like the real eye-opener. Well, don't get me wrong. Jeff can't hold, right, to anywhere from a legacy standpoint what Saban and Roy Williams and Coach K and Jay Wright have done for their schools and their institutions. But being the head coach of Boston College is like a fine job. You know, he was 6-5, 6-6, 3-9, 7-6. Like, it's a fine job, but you go from being a head coach to a defensive coordinator. And we've seen times before people leave a head coaching job in college football at a smaller stage of college football to go to an offensive coordinating job at a higher level in the Power 5. But Boston College, even though it's not the strength of the Power 5, it is a Power 5 job in college football. And this guy's 44 years old, and he's saying, I'm good with being the head coach. I just basically want to get back to coaching football. And maybe he looks at this, and maybe his aspiration is to be an NFL head coach. And he's been a defensive back coach. I saw Richard Sherman had a lot of praise for him when he was with the 49ers. You know, he's been the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. He had years in the NFL with Cleveland and Tampa Bay. Like, he's been all over the place. And maybe just naturally, he's not liking the shift in college football. He doesn't like the direction of college football. And he understands how difficult it is. And maybe he's saying to himself, I'll go to Green Bay, where they didn't like their old defensive coordinator. They couldn't stand him. If I have success in Green Bay under a good coach and Matt LaFleur, then maybe when I get to my 50s or my late 40s, I will get my opportunity to be an NFL head coach. Because even though I have conflicting emotions with how when coaches complain about NIL and the transfer portal, I would wholeheartedly agree it's easier to coach in the NFL now than it is in college football. And that wasn't always the case. Because in college football, right, you are the CEO. You could be a my way or a highway type of guy in college football. But now, even in free agency and salary cap and all that stuff, and you have to deal with grown men that could be making more money than you, it's easier to do that than constantly day in and day out grind of recruiting and figuring out this NIL stuff. So I think a lot of people will look at Jeff Hafley's decision and they'll say, what the heck are you doing? Why are you taking a demotion? But it's going to make his personal life easier. And if he has great success as a DC with the Green Bay Packers, he could be an NFL head coach in 2 to 3 years from now. And that is a better lifestyle and an easier job to be an NFL head coach than it is to be a college coach. Now, we know that Jim Harbaugh is just got introduced about an hour ago as the new head football coach of the Chargers. He had NFL experience, though, before, right, as a head coach, 3 NFC title games, and a Super Bowl appearance in 4 years with the San Francisco 49ers. But you now start to think, because some people go, oh, well, a lot more college guys are just going to jump to the NFL. I don't know if they're going to be welcomed. Like, you want to be an OC or a DC? Yeah, you could be welcomed, right? You've seen Jimmy Lake. You've seen Jeff Hafley. Like, you could be welcomed jumping from college to the NFL. But a lot of times when the college head coach goes to an NFL head coach, it doesn't end up working well. And we've seen it from a young up-and-coming coach that was a rebuilder, Matt Rule, recently. And then we saw it from a legendary head coach in Urban Meyer, and he didn't even make it through a full season. And I'm just trying to think, like, who are the coaches out there in college right now that could be NFL head coaches one day? Inevitably, Deion Sanders' name will always be brought up. But Coach Prime has even said he doesn't want to be an NFL head coach. He doesn't think he would fit as an NFL head coach. You could say Lincoln Riley, but I think Lincoln Riley so far, the last 2 years at USC, he hasn't met those standards, and he had Caleb Williams. I guess if Kirby Smart wanted to be a head coach in the NFL, someone would hire him. But Kirby Smart doesn't feel like an NFL head coach to me. Dabo, his shtick would not work in the NFL. Brian Kelly, his shtick would not work in the NFL as well. I think, you know what? I think this guy is a fake tough guy, and I do think people would see right through him. But if Crying Day can turn Ohio State around and turn around his misfortunes at Ohio State, he does have NFL experience. He was with Chip Kelly in Philly. He was with Chip Kelly with the 49ers. And there's been rumors for years about Ryan Day making the jump. But you can't turn around Ohio State or get Ohio State back to where they were before you took over. No one's going to really be blowing up your phone to be an NFL head coach. Like Samter and Stu, there's not a name that really resonates with me right now that's in college right now that you could see, okay, I could see them being an NFL head coach one day. And I know a lot of people are going to say, it's an easier lifestyle, but you also need to be wanted by the NFL. And I'm not saying all these head coaches are going to go the Jeff Hafley route, but if you're at a smaller, let's say, Power 5 school and you do have NFL aspirations, maybe you take the pay cut and maybe you take the demotion and not running the show to then go have a good 2-3 year run. And I do think Jeff Hafley, like, let's say if Jeff Hafley wants to be an NFL head coach. I don't think he's getting hired from Boston College to be an NFL head coach. I don't. But him going to the NFL, and let's say he has success in Green Bay 3 years from now, I don't think people are going to be like, oh, that was a college head coach. They're going to say, oh, he was a kick-ass defensive coordinator, and that's why they're hiring him to be a head coach in the NFL. So that's just the way that I think about it.
A couple names that stand out. Listen, your point is 100% accurate, right? We're seeing it in the college basketball, college football. Like, this NIL stuff, it's changing, and I love the idea of guys getting paid. I love the idea of players being able to move freely because they're college students. If I want to transfer from one school to another, I could transfer, and I wouldn't have to sit out a year before I can enter my algebra classes or whatever class I would be taking, history classes. So I like them being able to transfer. I like them being able to make money. I like that, but it is really making it too difficult for coaches to sustainably do what they have to do to build winning programs. But a couple names that do stand out to me, we talk about maybe being able to make that jump. We've talked for a couple years about maybe Lincoln Riley. I know his star is down a little bit. I could see Lincoln Riley in the NFL.
Yeah.
Dabo Swinney, a guy who's not embracing NILs and transfer portal. I could see him moving to NFL more because he's not embracing that style of the new college football system.
But he's a preacher. Preachers don't work in the NFL. They don't. Yeah. He's a my way or highway guy. I think the
Pete
first
Carroll
speech
was kind of viewed similarly when he made the jump too.
I think Dabo is, but Pete had NFL head coaching experience before. I think Pete is more comparable. I think Dabo would be more like Urban Meyer. I think it would be a disaster that quickly compared to having success like Pete Carroll. But there's not we used to do this segment 3-4 years ago, and we had plenty of names. Like there were names of guys with speculation. Pat Fitzgerald, remember, was coveted for years. Even with the Green Bay Packers to maybe be an NFL coach. Like there used to be a lot of names. Yeah, I could see why there's an appeal to leave college to go to the NFL, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of candidates.
Lane Kiffin making his return, maybe, but I mean,
you're trying to give Stu a heart attack. Seriously, you're trying to kill Stu.
You know what? He's not going to come back with the Raiders. We damn well know that after he burnt some bridges on the way out. But listen, you're not wrong. Maybe Jimbo Fisher makes his return to the NFL.
Guys, let me tell you, we're going to run this play. We're going to do this.
James Franklin, I could see that. I'm just trying to get under your skin. I'm just pushing buttons.
Jeez.
Pushing buttons.
You know what?
Penn State's going to go 9-3 and make the playoffs, by the way.
Let me throw one out there. I'll throw one out there. What about Saban? 71. I know it was not good in Miami. Never had his quarterback and went right back to Alabama. Saban, or went to Alabama. Saban just walked away. You're telling me there's not an owner or two next year that will at least call Nick Saban and say, hey, do you want to try to give that head coaching in the NFL one more chance? Because that's the only thing that Nick Saban hasn't done well in his illustrious career. And I don't know if that, if you get the right owner like Shad Khan, who was hell-bent on getting Urban Meyer there. If you get an owner like that is hell-bent to get Nick Saban, I don't think he would say no.
You know what? My initial reaction was no. You talk about it
he still wants to coach.
If he still enjoys coaching, and maybe like a year or two away, being on the air, and he's like, I still have the itch. I can get into the NFL because some team's gonna want him, and not have to deal with the BS that I was dealing with towards the end of my tenure there, and I can still just coach. You know what? I could see it.
Yeah,
I could see it.
The best line was Jalen Milroe reacted to the retirement of Nick Saban. He's like, well, he's 28 years from 100, so we got to let him go enjoy his life. And I don't think I need to see Saban in the NFL. It would be fun to talk about. It would be fun to cover. But at this point, when you're 72 and you've brought this much joy to so many people, I want you to just enjoy your life. Enjoy the rest of your life and enjoy retirement and enjoy your family. That's what I would say to Nick Saban. So
I did see some videos of him trying to boogie board a few years back. His daughter posted some videos of him having fun on vacation.
Really?
And it was him trying to boogie board, and basically it was him getting on a boogie board and a wave just knocking him over and tossing him into the water.
Nick Saban?
Yeah.
I've never seen this video. The only video I've seen where Nick Saban was having a good time is when he was dancing and doing, I think it was the electric slide, I want to say, or the Cupid Shuffle with some recruits and their family, which was just awesome. Anyway, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
And you can stream the NFL on West of One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to every West of One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open West of One Sports or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. The Commanders have made their underwhelming hire of Dan Quinn. I know a lot of people will think that's a very negative thing that I just said. I don't call it negativity. I would just say that I think it's a fine hire? Like, you think that's negative?
That's pretty. I mean,
it's underwhelming.
You called it a C+. That's pretty negative.
I don't know what you did in school, but a C+ is pretty good to me.
No, if I got a C+, I was getting a lashing.
Yeah, but like, seriously, though, we were told Ben Johnson, and then Ben Johnson bows out. You have Vrabel available. You want to tell me you didn't want Belichick because Bill Belichick is a my way or the highway, and he would never work with Adam Peters and wouldn't care for Josh Harris? All right, I could live with that. But when Vrabel's available, and everyone said you were going to get Ben Johnson, and then you don't get Ben Johnson, is Dan Quinn really the best that you could do? Like, solid coach, fine coach, coach a team to a Super Bowl, hired the right offensive coordinator to get the most out of Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan was an MVP under his tutelage. But Dan Quinn, I think what his agent tried to tell you he wasn't, because the last 2-3 years, his name has been attached to every job. And let's just call it what it is. Dan didn't get offered those jobs. He presented it like, oh, I want to go back to Dallas, and I'm not ready to leave Dallas right now. But there were, 8 jobs available this cycle? And finally, it took the last team, when they got rejected by Ben Johnson, to say, okay, we'll hire you. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. What's a gift that, like, someone wants? You got a gift that you want me to get you, Samter?
Yeah, it's called a McLaren F1.
Okay. So let's say I told you that I was going to get you that. And then I go, happy holidays. Thanks for doing some great work. Here is a very nice button down. Like, you look good in it. Yeah, it's nice button down. It's expensive. But when you ask for something all the way up here and you get something in the middle, it doesn't mean the middle is bad. It doesn't mean that the hire was a wrong one. Like, I'm not trashing the hire, but when I'm told it was going to be exciting, I'm told there was palpable buzz. Oh, the Commanders know what they're doing. They got the hotshot young GM and Adam Peters. They have a new owner in Josh Harris. You got that POS in Daniel Snyder out of the organization. Like, when that's all the stuff I was being told, and you're going to make the big splash, this isn't a big splash. This is like medium-sized waves. That's what it is. There's no big splash here. And that's, out of all these teams that had job openings, I thought the Commanders were going to make a big splash, because this is the first time for Josh Harris to kind of make his mark in the NFL. GM was successful. Very much praise. In the draft, he's going to take a quarterback at 2. But it's a 3-step process. GM, coach, and quarterback. GM hire was met with 2 thumbs up. We'll see if it ends up working. The coach hire was like, it's not bad, but it's not great.
Well, the other part for me also, and I'm sure you talked about this while I was gone, the guys they interviewed, right? They didn't even interview Vrabel. They didn't even interview Belichick. So let's say, like, after Ben Johnson says no to them, Raheem Morris was a guy that they wanted. He went to the Falcons.
Yeah.
Mike McDonald went to the Seahawks. Bobby Slowick decided to stay with the Texans, right? They interviewed Bieniemy, who was there, who's been up for coaching jobs for years. I'm surprised that he wasn't given more of a serious opportunity. However,
well, let me just say this. I don't believe Eric Bieniemy is ever going to be an NFL head
at this
coach.
point, if you can't get it by being the Chiefs OC and then your own team.
Where he was fine in the beginning of the year, middle of the year, and then at the end of the year, they just didn't have enough. And don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-Eric Bieniemy. I would love to see Eric Bieniemy as a head coach. But after years and years and years of his stock being high and he didn't get a job, eventually your stock falls. And now it's like, okay, he's a good coach, but I think him being the hot name in the hiring cycle is clearly phased out by now, especially judging by this last hiring cycle.
So at the end of the day, you look at these guys. McDonald chose the Seahawks over the Commanders. Raheem Morris chose the Falcons over the Commanders. Ben Johnson decided not to leave. Slowick decided not to leave.
They were interested in Aaron Glenn.
How many teams who have a potential franchise caliber quarterback waiting in the wings with that number 2 pick, whether it's Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels, whoever you think it might be, You have the potential to build your franchise with a brand new number 2 overall pick, starting quarterback, a guy who, like Drake May, who's been slotted number 2 for a year and a half. People have been talking about him being the guy right behind Caleb Williams.
It's an attractive job.
So the fact that they all said no to them makes me wonder something else is going on. But the fact that they didn't interview Belichick or Vrabel at all, because once all their big names were off the list, once Morris and Johnson, McDonald were off the list, they were left with Glenn, Anthony Weaver, Quinn, or Bieniemy. They didn't even have that unless they went back to the conference.
And none of those are elite names.
Right? Like, why didn't they even bring Vrabel in just to test the waters? Bring Belichick in to test the waters. And if you decide afterwards, all right, like the Falcons did, this isn't going to work, so be it. But at least you had that interview under your belt and you're done and you can move on to the next step. If they decided, you know what, let's bring in Vrabel now because our top 3 guys all went somewhere else or decided not to come to us, to start that process with Vrabel now, it would take weeks before they can hire him. Why not bring Vrabel and Belichick in before? That's where they screwed up. Not by interviewing these list of great assistant names, but by not interviewing Belichick and Vrabel, they put themselves in a position to have this underwhelming hire of Quinn as their best option left.
So the only one thing that I'll just say, just because this came out today with Diana Rossini, during the hiring process in Washington, Bill Belichick was considered for the job per sources. The commander spoke with him, and he had support from decision makers. In the end, Dan Quinn is their choice. Now, that comes out after the fact. Diana Rossini, though, is a great reporter, so I'll believe what she says. So I guess they talked to him, but that's not an official interview. But the one that bugs me here, and as Emmett Smith would say, it makes me hot. It makes me hot is that they didn't even interview Mike Vrabel. Like, you can't tell me Dan Quinn, you'd rather have Dan Quinn in the year of 2024 than Mike Vrabel. Now, maybe Vrabel just wasn't interested. Maybe they tried and he just had no interest. But I just look at this and I keep on going back to the word underwhelming. And really, in the NFC East right now, and I'll circle back to this poll question that we have, that's Zach Gelb at CBS Sports Radio. The Commanders hired Dan Quinn. So which NFC East coach do you have the most confidence in? McCarthy with the Cowboys, Sirianni with the Eagles, Quinn with the Commanders, Brian Daboll with the Giants. Before I get to the results, let's just go around the room here. Stu, who's the coach of the NFC East that you have the most confidence in now?
It's McCarthy. I think it is McCarthy.
Samter? Coach in the NFC East that you have the most confidence in?
I think it's Sirianni. I still think it's Sirianni.
Boyle?
Sirianni.
Who is Patty Boyle? Whoa!
As much as I don't like Nick Sirianni, I think he's the best head coach.
Boyle just said something positive about Philadelphia. Remember where you are, folks. This is a historic day on CBS Sports Radio. It's the first day of February in the year of 2024, and Pat Boyle finally uttered a positive word about someone in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I saw my shadow. I've come out of the light here. Let me rephrase. Not I think he's the best coach. I think with the roster they have, success they had last year, I think kicking the coordinators out of the building and kind of starting fresh, I think is going to work for the Eagles. I think they bounce back next year, so okay. I think they'll be the best team.
So I'm going McCarthy, and it's not a ringing endorsement for McCarthy. Dan Quinn, I think, is a 9-8, 10-7 coach at best. Brian Daboll, great first year, some people skills behind the scenes that are problematic, and they just don't have talent. I don't see how the Giants are any good next year. Sirianni, what does he do? Like, McCarthy calls the plays.
They literally asked him that at his press conference.
Yeah, because they basically said, I'm Howie Roseman. I hold the left string of the puppet. I am Jeffrey Lurie. I hold the right string of the puppet. And the puppet is Nick Sirianni. And Nick Sirianni has a new offensive coordinator who is Kellen Moore, who's, I think, one of the more overrated offensive minds in the league. And then you bring in Vic Fangio, who would have been the DC last year if Gannon didn't screw them. But Fangio's calling the plays. Moore's on the offense. And now the one thing Sirianni has to do is not cause chaos in the locker room. And this past year, the Eagles' locker room was so chaotic. So I can't even trust him to not be a doormat and at least rally the troops together. You want to delegate? I'm fine with delegating. Don't get me wrong. But you got to do something. And there's McCarthy, who I know is going to win 11, 12 games next year. And then in the postseason, at most, they'll go as the divisional round. So I do go McCarthy. But I hold my nose when I say that. And I don't like any of these coaches. I don't love any of these coaches. I think at best, all these coaches, I know Sirianni got to a Super Bowl. But if they get to an NFC title game, I think that's great success for all four. Well, forget about Quinn and forget about Daboll. But for the Cowboys and the Eagles, I don't believe in McCarthy or Sirianni to get the job done in those spots to win a Super Bowl.
Now, I mean, again, don't you think, though, that Nick Sirianni, as a head coach, as a leader, don't you think that at their worst, which was they lost, 6 out of their final 7 games?
Yeah, they were 10-1
and then got
game.
blasted in the wild card game. Don't you think he's somewhere in between that and a coach that's in the Super Bowl, which at worst is, this better than McCarthy?
I underrated the departure, but I think Shane Steichen was a big reason for that.
Okay.
So if Kellen Moore could be that guy, but Kellen Moore was supposed to be a head coach. And then he had to go run away from Dallas. And then Dak had all the success this past year. They did nothing with the Chargers. And now this guy's supposed to be the savior in Philadelphia. I don't usually advocate for a coach to get fired when 3 years it's been 3 playoffs and they were in a Super Bowl a year ago. But in the Sirianni case, I do. That team has the most upside. They have the best roster. They got the best team. But I don't think they have the right leader of men to get the job done. And when you walk in with your players' uniforms, and you act like a player, then the players treat you like a player. And I'm not saying you can't be a player's coach, but you got to be more like a D'Amico Ryans. You got to be more like a Dan Campbell, where you're not getting walked over by your players. And I think the players took a lot of advantage over Nick Sirianni this past year. All righty, here are the results so far. 21% say Mike. Let me do this in order. Dan Quinn at 20%, Mike McCarthy at 21%, Brian Daboll at 24%, and then 35% say Boyle's best friend, Nick Sirianni. Commanders hired Dan Quinn, so which NFC East coach do you have the most confidence in? 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. You could always get in on the poll question at Zach Gelb at CBS Sports Radio. When we come on back, the top 5 destinations for Mike Vrabel to coach next year, since he won't be coaching as a head coach in the NFL this year. Update time. Here he is, Patty Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
All right, Zach, and we're sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $750 on average. Call or click today and find out if we could save you hundreds on your car insurance. In case you missed it, final head coaching vacancy in the NFL has been filled. Cowboys defense coordinator Dan Quinn has reached an agreement to become the next head coach of the Washington Commanders. Busy offseason for new owner Josh Harris. As Zach talked about, he nabbed former 49ers assistant GM Adam Peters. Now Dan Quinn is his head coach. Washington owns the number 2 overall pick in this year's draft. They haven't had a winning season since 2016. NBA news, reigning MVP Joel Embiid out tonight with the left injury that he suffered in Tuesday's loss to the Warriors. He did not travel with the team to Utah for tonight's game. He returned to Philly for further evaluation. Knicks' Julius Randle will be out 2 to 3 weeks with a dislocated shoulder he suffered Saturday against the Heat. He will be reevaluated at that time. Knicks host Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers at MSG. And as Darvin Ham's seat gets hotter, he won't have his 2 superstars tonight. Both LeBron and Anthony Davis are out against the Celtics in Boston. The C's are 15.5-point favorites. Yikes. Golf, first round of the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Patrick Cantley still the leader. He's now at 8 under. And former Florida State coach Mike Martin, the winningest coach in college baseball history, died today at 79. I'm Pat Boyle.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, wrapping up shop. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. You know, what's the most surprising thing that has happened this NFL offseason in terms of coaching? Is it Belichick not getting a job? Is it Vrabel not getting a job? Or if it's Pete Carroll not getting a job? And the way that I would order that, and you guys kind of be checks and balances here. Tell me if you disagree. I
disagree.
Man, you producers around here. No, I'm just kidding. I would say number one would be Vrabel because he's young. I'm not saying he's a better head coach than Belichick, but he's younger. And a lot of people thought he was going to go to New England, but then New England had this deal with Gerard Mayo. But I thought someone else, like at least the Commanders or the Seahawks, one of them would have hired him. Maybe he just didn't want a job this cycle. But I would say Vrabel would be 1, Belichick would be 2, and Carroll would be 3. I think Carroll not getting a job is the least surprising. He still wanted to coach, but I think he wants to go about this the right way, which I don't know if there's a right way, where he just wants his contract, I guess, to run out with the Seahawks, and then he'll just take a job somewhere else next year or try to get a job somewhere else next year in whatever advisory role that they created for him. So I'm least surprised that Carroll is not coaching, but I would say I'm most surprised by Vrabel and then second most surprised by Belichick.
I would agree on Carroll. I would probably swap Vrabel and Belichick, only because Vrabel was 10 games under 500 the last 2 years. I understand there have been injuries and there were issues and quarterback stuff, but it wasn't like his Titans teams were gangbusters. They had a couple years, 11 wins, 12 wins. They had that nice run to the
AFC Championship
surprising
game.
Run, right? So it wasn't like they were like this dominant team.
And they followed up with a 1 seed.
Correct. So he had 2 good years. Yes, I get it, but
he had 3 really good years, I would say.
So he was 9-7, 9-7, 11-5, 12-5, 7-10, 6-11. So he had like 2 really good years.
But that 9 win years when they got to the AFC Championship game, I'm pretty sure.
So at the end of the day, I'm surprised by it, but it's Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was more surprised that Belichick parted ways with the Pats. I thought they'd be able to work it out. But once he parted ways...
Well, he didn't part ways with the Pats. The Pats parted ways with him.
I thought they would be able to figure it out and work it out and just be like, it's freaking Bill Belichick. At the end of the day, once he was gone from New England, I thought it was a shoo-in that any of the 7 or 8 teams that were looking for a coach was going to take him, especially when Florio midseason was saying Commanders want to trade for him, that the Falcons had interviewed him multiple times, that he really liked the Chargers job also. Like, it seemed inevitable he was going to go somewhere.
So 2 things. Harbaugh, I had no problem with the Chargers hiring him. I think it's a home run hire. So that takes the Chargers out of it. The thing with Belichick, though, his biggest downfall is his hubris, right? Overconfidence that leads to someone's downfall. He put all of his eggs in the basket of the Falcons because Arthur Blank wanted him. But then other people in that organization said, I don't know if we should bring him, Bill, because they knew then they would be out of the organization within a year because Bill's going to do his thing his way. And I don't think Bill's going to adapt. I do think Bill will coach again. But Bill is going to have to give the presence that he's changed and adapt. And I think that's very tough for someone as accomplished as Bill Belichick, where he's been able to do whatever he wanted for 20 years to be able to present that. But ultimately, get on TV, he'll smile like one time and he'll get a job next year. Now, for Vrabel, these are my 5 destinations for him next year. I'll throw the Steelers out there in at number 5. He played for the Steelers. I don't believe the Steelers will move on from Mike Tomlin, but if Tomlin wants to move on from them, right, you've had Noel, you've had Cowher, and then you've had Tomlin. I could see maybe Tomlin saying, okay, I'm more out than the Steelers getting me, moving on from me, and maybe it's a Tomlin decision to reset. And if that's the case a year from now, Vrabel would be right at the top of their list. Number 4, I think it's the Chicago Bears. They're going to have the number 1 overall pick. That's going to be an attractive destination. Vrabel got to an AFC title game and also had a 1 seed with Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback, and you could be working with Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick. Eberflus doesn't have success this year. Poles, even though he's made a nice foundation, they don't have success this year. Maybe they're moving on from a GM and a head coach this time next year. Then you get to the fun teams. Like, I think the Steelers are a wild card. I think the Bears are a wild card. The Buffalo Bills in at number 3. I don't believe the Bills want to move on from Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott has done some really good things in Buffalo. I do believe the Bills are afraid to see what life is like without Sean McDermott because of how long the playoff drought was before he got there, like nearly 2 decades, and then all they do now is make the playoffs. And then let's just say this Bills team underachieves once again, or they're disappointing in the playoffs once again. Is that the final straw that breaks the camel's back where you go, okay, now we have to move on from Sean McDermott? So I would monitor the Bills. Number 2, it's the Dallas Cowboys. The reason why the Cowboys aren't 1 is because I ultimately do think Bill Belichick is coaching them next year. But for Dallas, McCarthy disappoints in the postseason again. Jerry Jones looking for maybe he could go an older coach, a younger, more energetic coach. Mike Vrabel checks off a lot of boxes. And the Cowboys have a lot of resource and a lot of good players already on that roster. And the number 1, Man, I think Philadelphia, you want a coach that really embodies the city? Mike Vrabel is that dude. Mike Vrabel would be that guy for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I have a tough time thinking that Sirianni a year from now is back as the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. But also, then you get into, will Howie Roseman be able to coexist with Mike Vrabel? And maybe that's the underrated part of this story. Maybe because we all like Vrabel, and Vrabel is like that. He's a player's coach, but he's not a doormat. And we had Chad Brown on the other day, who a former teammate said he's the smartest guy in the room, and sometimes that does scare off people, especially when you have these brainiacs as the GM. So I would say the 5 destinations of Vrabel next year that I look for: Steelers 5, Bears 4, Bills 3, Cowboys 2, Eagles 1.
I'm surprised you're not leaving in the Buckeyes as an option to go back to his home college to play after crying days, going to lose again to an undermanned Michigan team with all the transfers and all the recruits they got there in Columbus. And if they lose again, Day's gone and Vrabel's coming in.
Can I make an early admission in February that you could subject to change on this?
The Buckeyes will beat Michigan this year?
Well, I don't want to say that. That wasn't what I was going to say. But what I was going to say basically
you want to say it,
implies
but you're not going
to. As much as I despise Ryan Day, and I think he is a fake tough guy and a fraud, and I think he's a loser head coach, even though he's only lost 8 or 9 games in his career. But hey, what Ohio State was isn't anything what it was close to be under Urban Meyer. I actually do believe in the Buckeyes this year. Early offseason take. I actually think the Buckeyes they'll probably end up choking in the college football playoff, but I think they're going to make a lot of noise in the regular season. That schedule is soft. It is soft serve ice cream this year, their schedule. So anyway, that's the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll be back tomorrow on a busy Friday. Do we call tomorrow Football Friday? I don't think so. With the Pro Bowl and a week away from the Super Bowl. We'll talk a lot of football. I'm just not calling it Football Friday.
It's the Pro Bowl games. It's not even the Pro Bowl anymore.
Yeah, it's fugazi. Stu, thank you. Samter, welcome on back. Thank you to each one of you for listening to the show. We'll talk mañana at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.